Hi everyone and welcome to Let's Be Honest Now. So each month we have a different theme and our theme for this month is addiction, and we're joined here today by Kingsley. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, so our first question is, as a man, what are the most addictive behaviours, attitudes and actions seen today which are most obvious?
It's so broad. Ah, it's like everything from pranking each other to sagging. Um, just that's so general.
Okay, so what are the most obvious ones we see today?
I guess and this is addictions. One of the obvious ones is just trying to save face. I'd say, because I do find like guys generally, we try to prove things to each other.
Yeah.
Uh, that's why we, when boys fall out, they make up pretty quickly. I think for guys it'd be more a case of it's all about status.
Yeah.
So a lot of the addictions that you find men have is usually connected to that in some way. Sometimes, but again, I wouldn't want to generalize because obviously there are subcultures and all this sort of stuff. But I'd say within the stuff that relate to status, I'd say maybe chasing money, chasing women. Yeah, there's even some of the good attributes like chasing an educational path, sort of thing. When it gets to a stage where it's more of a competition and you're doing it for all the wrong reasons,
Yeah.
to just kind of one up someone else
guy.
within your social group.
Yeah.
Yeah, oh well, I have a PhD. Like, oh well, I've got a master's and stuff like that. You're addicted to, this sort of, persona that you want to have, so that you can project it to other people, and they can say, oh yeah, this person is, highly majestic or whatever. I think if we were talking about, in a Christian context, some of the things that people are addicted to. One of the really big ones that I know of is like porn, for example. You hear of that a lot. What else? Gaming, actually. Yeah, that's another one. Because I do find like myself, I actually threw out a PlayStation I had because I'm a writer, but you have to make time to write. And if you've taken out, I don't know, maybe 4 hours in a 24-hour day, 8 of those hours of which you're sleeping, or you're meant to be sleeping anyway, that's like a quarter of your day gone already. So you've got another 3/4 left. So, and I used to just play, football for like 3 days and just
In a row.
trying to. And again, it's like I'm addicted to winning. So I'm very competitive. So when I start something like that, I'm like, I have to win, and it's just consuming too much time. I mean, personally, I'm addicted to work. I'm a bit of a workaholic. A lot of my friends are just like, no, we're taking you out. you're going to have a break. You're going to sleep. I get a lot of texts from my friends saying you should sleep. And it's dangerous as well because I've fallen asleep in places I shouldn't meant to and ended up in God knows where sometimes.
Yeah.
But yeah, I feel like men should kind of cultivate a habit of coming together to defend against things like porn, and because I feel like, especially in this day and age, there's a lot of objectification of women's bodies and things like that are just thrown at us as well as men as well. Kind of putting out a demand, even though a supply, even though we don't want that demand necessarily. As Christian men. So that's just one aspect anyway. And then obviously there's like the money as well. I've had friends in college who, have been drug dealers and things like that, and involved in things that they shouldn't have been. And it's so hard for them to get out of it because they're so ingrained in that lifestyle, and it's given them the things that they've desired and craved. but it's not been worth it, and but at the same time they can't let go of it, so it's been really, really difficult for them, and they need that support and help to be like, look, you're not alone, come with me, let's do this, I can help you, pray with them, not just be like, oh well, you're a bad person, I'm a good person, and separate yourself. That's not how you help people. But those are some of the addictions anyway. I feel like the few, we don't have many, I guess, as such, although maybe the pretty boys who like to constantly tidy themselves up for the girls, over grooming Beckham, and we will allow him because he's married to Victoria, but yeah.
Okay, so our second question is, men are predominantly viewed as the stronger sex in society compared to women. How do you think this idea can trigger addictive behaviours?
Well, I come from a African and Caribbean family, and there is that sort of strong man stereotype in just Africa generally, and the Caribbean, you're all part of the same. And you just feel like, because in Corinthians, and in Ephesians I think it is, and Timothy, gosh, I'm going for the whole Bible, I think it's Timothy, where Paul basically just peels away all these layers and says, look, women, submit yourselves to your husbands, and husbands, love your wives as Christ loved the church, which is huge. Yeah. It is huge. And I feel like, well, wouldn't any woman want to submit themselves to a man who would love you to death, basically, to the point of death, that's how much Christ loved us. He said, in fact, I'm ready to give my life. It's not a problem. That's why I'm here. I feel if every guy was, had that agenda, or put that agenda and let, their woman know straight away that, look, this is why we're together, this is why I'm here for you, and not kind of treat them like a slave or some sort of second best or inferior. I'm sure they'd be more than happy to give that sort of equality, because they're a partnership. That's how I see it. But again, in the world today, you see a lot of just like the opposite of that, where men are meant to be shut off, strong but in the wrong way, closed off, you're not communicating, all these other things like that, and it does create, again, stereotypes like that get bolstered and glorified in the multimedia, and then people want to copy those false stereotypes, and then you get these irritating copies who go around and like treat women with disrespect, and then obviously that makes women bitter, and then they in turn behave in ways that they shouldn't, so it's just a vicious circle.
So in terms of being the stronger sex, do you feel like men neglect character development in terms of integrity, in terms of respect, for things like being strong?
Oh yeah. I feel chivalry is dead apparently. You get a lot of. I feel like there's because I'm just trying to cast my mind back. There've been times where I've maybe done things that were supposedly quite chivalrous and things like that, and some of my guy mates have been like, what are you doing that for? Or seriously? Or you did that? That's kind of weak or lame, or like, or they give it some sort of name and make you feel like that's what, a subordinate would be doing, not what a man's man would be doing, stuff like that. I feel like you said, you mentioned development, and I feel like God's building us up and he's making us he's constantly making us better and better. He said we're only going to know him fully when he comes. So we have to just see life as a continuous growth spurt, essentially. So I don't feel like I know everything or there is to, in manhood, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. And I always have like mentors around to constantly be learning from, because I don't want to get to a stage where I've got, I'm so far gone, like my cup is full that I can't be open enough to receive anything, to learn and understand. And I'm always open to the comments from women as well, like my mum, my sister, my friends and family, and I have a lot of female friends as well. And the reason why is because they talk about men a lot, and the things that, they're just not receiving from them that they're meant to receive. And that kind of gives you a lot of insight into what's lacking, you know, and that helps me to kind of be a better person as well. So, okay, well, I think I would want to do this if I was in this scenario and stuff like that, basically. Yeah.
Okay. Our final question is, in terms of the Bible, biblically, it states that we are new creations in Christ. So why do you think we still struggle with addictions?
Yeah. Before I mention any books, let me think about it first. I can't remember what book it's in, but I give you the topic. I think it's either the Corinthians or Ephesians, and Paul talks about how we're constantly being changed, that we've been brought from death to life, and now we're being like regenerated and we're being built into this new person. You know, we're being upgraded, and it's not like an instantaneous thing. Although, having said that, when Christ comes, it will be instantaneous. But if you like, the buffering process is from now until Christ comes. Yeah. So there's all this space for growth and improvement and learning, and, you know, and just enjoying life. And it's the reason why I feel like we struggle with things is because we're not perfect. That's the first thing we have to point out. Yeah. When I first turned to Christ, I mean, Christ was always in my family, so it was I can't really point out a point where I was like, yeah, I gave my life there, sort of thing. But when I started reading the Bible, I was like, oh, okay, this is the Bible, and I read quite a few. I read 6 or 7 by accident because they had them lying around, and my uncle was like, why are you reading all of them for? And I was like, oh, but they're different. And he was like, no, this is different translations. So I was like, oh, right. Oh, wow. Yeah, and what happens is that I took a lot of these things too literally, and I was being really hard on myself because I wanted to do this right, you know. And I used to get really frustrated. And so one of my friends was like, look, it's not, you don't become perfect straight away. You don't get rid of these things that you've been struggling with for years straight away. You know, you change over time, you know, and you just realize that all of a sudden you don't do that anymore, or suddenly you're interested in this, which is a good thing, or you know, you're helping out where in places that maybe you didn't help out, or you're building something towards, you know, God's kingdom in one way or another. And it's not an instantaneous thing. And when I look back now, it's just a constant, gradual process. And I think if we looked at it like that, just like when we're you know, downloading music, it doesn't just, it shows you the percentage, you know, until it reaches 100%. And I feel like our walk is constantly like that. But until we reach that point, we're going to be struggling with things. And I don't think it's a bad thing, because, you know, there's a proverb that says silver is for the fire and gold is for the furnace, but the Lord tries hearts. And there's a reason why it's good that those metals pass through the fires. Yeah. When they come out the other end, they're purified, and you know, it's those impurities that metal once possessed is gone. And that's exactly what our walk is like, you know, with Christ as well. So there's going to be addictions that we have, you know. Even for me now, I'm struggling with things, but I just have to keep on saying, I am useful, I am God's child. I do repent of my sins. I have to pray every day, and I have to keep trying, you know, fight the good fight, you know, and just believe, because the devil will say otherwise and contrary, and make you feel like you're not brilliant, but God has said, you know, actually, I'll die for you. So
that was another thing I was going to point out, because some people have addictions, but they're not willing to change, whereas there are others that have them and they're striving constantly to actually deal with them rather than just let them be.
Do you know what? You're right, actually. And I feel like there's a couple of things, or one major thing for me, I feel, where that has really influenced this, and it's the fact that people don't come out to say, I struggled with this. Yeah. It's a pride thing as well. And I feel like men have this thing, that's one of our addictions, pride, again, status sort of thing. Instead of them to kind of help each other out and say, oh, do you know what, I actually struggle with this, and you know, we should pray about this and talk about this, meet up on a day, pray about it, and maybe see if anyone else needs help. No. They'll hide it, pretend they're perfect. Yeah, and it's humility. We're not the best at that. not always. And I feel like if more people came out and said, oh, do you know what, I've been through this, it would bolster up someone who's going through that thing right there and then in that space, and they'll be like, oh, so it's not just me. Because whenever you're going through something, you always think you're alone, or you know, I've had, and I feel like you know, the people in, you know, especially like at the older generation, they're not, well, not all of them, it's very, I won't generalize, but they're not always, you know, free to say, oh, well, I did this, this, and this, and this, and here is why these are bad, these things I did are bad, and here's why you shouldn't do them. They will just say, well, don't do this thing, you know. But if I feel like the young generation maybe, you know, connect and relate to some of the struggles that, you know, the older ones had gone through, so they'll be like, well, it's nothing new, and maybe I shouldn't be fazed by it, you know. Because someone I know said, you know, sin is just repackaged in a new, you know, bit of paper. Yeah, it's like an iPhone. keep bringing out the same thing again and again, you know. Yeah, that's literally what it is. I feel that's really helped me and a group of my friends last year, where the difference in the meetings was that people came out and said, I'm struggling with this, and really, and like, we all gathered around, prayed for them. There was no shame, no judgment. No one went away and started gossiping. And that's another thing. I feel the women are a little bit more gossipy than the guys. The guys really can, but I feel like that's an issue as well, because there is that fear that, oh, if I tell them I'm going through this, they're gonna spread my daily laundry everywhere, and stuff like that. And I don't need it, you know, being told. But there needs to be that trust. So I feel like people definitely need to be coming together and sharing to help, because, you know, Christ said, help the weak ones, and strong should build the weak, and so forth. So, yeah.
Great. Well, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, I know, it's been a pleasure.
Great. Yeah. And thank you to everyone who's been watching this video. We just pray that it will be something beneficial for you and something that you can share with others. Share on Facebook, share on Twitter, be following us, and make sure you check out all the other videos on the website. We hope you've enjoyed it, and God bless. Bye.